An information available to TV3 indicates President John Mahama has accepted the recommendations of a committee set up by the Chief Justice and, in accordance with Article 146, Clause 9, remove Madam Loretta Lamptey from office as Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ. The Chief Justice set up the committee following a petition submitted against Madam Lamptey. The committee has concluded that Madam Lamptey was unfit to hold the position of the Commissioner for CHRAJ. TV3 sources at the presidency indicate President Mahama dispatched the removal letter before planning to Bolgatanga for his Changing Lives tour this afternoon. The Flagstaff House will later issue a statement to that effect. All right, so before we delve any further into the discussion, we'll take you back to when it's all started. And that was according to the Daily Graphic, the Commissioner of CHRAJ, Madame Loretta Lamptey, since August 2015, moved into a hotel after the $5,500 monthly rent for her apartment at the African Union Village expired. The daily rate for the hotel is said to be around $456.25 being paid in cedi equivalent. This was her justification for her action when the story first broke.
There's a redesign going on. There's a renovation because of time, because of some issues with the house. And that renovation had begun before I took up the job. And it is that renovation which has continued. And not that it has taken this length of time, but that because the contractor has not been paid, which is simply a situation that we have in the country where investment funds have not been made available. He had just run out of money and has not been able to finish. He's almost completed, but the house has not been habitable. And that's why we've had to continue renting, in a nutshell. He's been waiting to get funds to just complete, and we've been waiting, and I've been ready to move in, even with it uncompleted, just for basic services to be in there. Happy to move even to an uncompleted house.
That was Madame Lamptey. They're justifying why she needed to be at a hotel. And when the story first broke and the president was petitioned, former Supreme Court Justice VCRAC Crabbe lauded the president for the initiative, and Odilio Fori spoke to him.
I think it's a very good thing in the exercise of our responsibilities as citizens of this country, if we want to establish democracy as it should be. I think we have to commend the president and the authorities that they have the courage to set the legal processes in motion so that we really appreciate and understand when we talk of the rule of law, these are some of the implications of the rule of law.
Right, and we'll go on the phone line and speak to Richard Inyama. He was one of the persons who petitioned the president to have the action instituted against the former CHRAJ. Well, all right, Richard Inyama joins us on the phone line now. A very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Bridget.
Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Bridget.
Yes. What does this mean for you personally? What does this mean for you?
First and foremost, let me congratulate my counsel, Samson Lada. This is down to him. The very first day I contacted him, he told me, get evidence, hardcore evidence, before you bother speaking to me. And so before I could even sit with him, I had the evidence in hand. And he prepared a technically airtight case that ended up bringing us this far. Let me also correct an impression that is being created. There's only one petition. There's never been more than one petition before the committee, and it's only that petition that has been ruled on. And that is the one I put before the Chief Justice. The petition was grounded in 3-4 areas, and they as follows: serious misconduct, inappropriate exercise of office, serious misjudgment, breaches of law and public trust. And so we then set out to put our evidence to satisfy these areas. So in the case of she occupying the AU village, we had to put out evidence to that effect. The fact that she broke the Rents Act, the time she moved into the hotel, the relevant laws that she broke and the evidence accompanying that.
Richard, hello, Richard.
Hello.
Richard, yes, the account you're giving, I mean, we all know that. We're all aware.
Yes.
I want to know what this means. I mean, yes, the president has taken the action. Obviously, she's been removed from office. Does it come to you as a personal gratification, with some sort of personal gratification?
Oh, not really. It's not a gratification for me in any way. If you know my history, I've been doing this since 2009, and it's just normal. But for me, it is a boost in the arm of the anti-corruption fight in this country.
Okay.
I'm happy to see that a lot of people are getting interested. The Anti-Corruption Coalition, Ghana Integrity Initiative, now individuals are all taking up the fight against corruption. And it is very good, because if you look at the history of Africa and Ghana in particular, we have had two major historical events.
Okay.
One was the effect of the slave trade on us, and then secondly was the fight for independence. For me, the current issue that we all have to fight to liberate us is corruption in this country.
All right. Thank you very much, Richard Inyama, for talking to us. I will go on the phone line and speak to the Executive Director for Ghana Integrity Initiative, Vytas Azim, on what this means. I mean, what the posturing of this to the country, people who have followed the case, and also other cases that we're following in this country. Vytas Azim, a very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm saying.
All right. Let me pick your initial thoughts on the president removing Madam Vivian Lamptey from office.
Well, I have not read the news item, but if it is true, the president is just following what is required by the Constitution. She has been given a hearing. She has made a case, and if the committee has found out that what has happened requires that she be fired, I think the president has to do what is required by the Constitution.
Okay. Does this in any way give people hope, confidence, that indeed the fight against corruption is not a mirage?
Yes, I think it gives people the hope that at least there are some systems that are still working in this country. And so even though we say corruption is widespread, certain issues are being taken up under institutions, and especially if it's coming from the judiciary. It gives people a lot of hope in spite of the case of the judges, but it means that we still have people in this country that I think are eager to do the right thing.
What do we need to do more? I know you launched the I paid bribe campaign, and we have the issue of the National Service Scheme and the like. What does this really do for us as we follow the cases that are currently in the pipeline, hoping that we'll see an end to them?
Yes, so what I'm saying is it's a feather in the cap of the fight against corruption. We know that there are certain high-profile cases that the government has failed to address adequately. But then, at least once in a while, when this happens, it gives people hope. It encourages people to report acts of corruption and pursue them to the end. It also means that it's not enough for you to just go and to just speak about it on radio and stop there. When you speak about it on radio, if you are convinced that there is a basis, you need to go beyond just speaking on it on radio or putting it in the newspaper.
Okay. But what do you think governments need to do more, to bite more, for people to have that indeed it's not just a few isolated cases, but indeed they are tackling it from its roots?
You see, government needs to act on the investigation, some of the investigations that have taken place for a long time now, and we're not even hearing much about it. You look at the Super Info Solution case, we were expecting that government will come back and say that these monies were wrongly paid, we are taking back the money, they have not said it. to the extent that a parliamentary committee went and even commended them for what they are doing. That is unfortunate. But well, that's what has happened. Then we talk about the Sada case, we talk about the Gida case. We are not seeing much about it. Government needs to set up and look at these things well. The judgment debt investigations, the FIFA investigations, we are not seeing much from these things. Government needs to set up, if it's really committed to the fight against corruption. These are isolated cases. The national service case involves a lot of people. But when the high-profile cases are not handled, people tend to think that it involves certain people in the society that are untouchable, or that it may even be involved in some political circles. That's why government is not eager to do something about it. And government needs to disabuse people's minds of this. If they do that, then we'll be making a serious way in the fight against corruption.
All right. But before you go, should we be calling for further legal action, or removal is enough?
Like I said, I haven't seen the report or the news item that indicated that she has been fired. We need to see this. The constitutional provision requires that the president acts on what the committee recommends. So if the committee has recommended that she be sacked and left there, that's fine. But if the committee also says that the money that have been used should be recovered, then that will be the next step. It may not recommend prosecution. But if the committee recommends prosecution, the president has nothing to do with it. He just has to go ahead and act according to the recommendations of the committee. And so we need to know what the committee says.
All right. Thank you very much for talking to us. Vytas Azim is the Executive Director for Ghana Integrity Initiative. We're staying on the phone line and speak to the Presidential Advisor on Corruption, Daniel Batidama. Very good evening to you, and thank you very much for joining us. And sorry for keeping you on the line for so long. Unfortunately, we've lost him, but we would want to get him back on the line and speak to him on what more we should expect. Good evening to you, Mr. Daniel Batidam. Hello, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
All right. I would appreciate if you could turn down the volume on your set. We could get. We're getting feedback in the studio. Thank you.
Good evening, and good evening to your viewers and listeners.
All right. I want to put the same question to you. Will you be calling for any further action, legal action, to be taken aside relieving her of her job?
Well, I think it's early days yet. I think what all of us have to be happy about as Ghanaians is the fact that the rule of law and due process is taking its course. We have all waited for quite some months. Some were those who argued that the president needed to act speedily as soon as the petitions came some months ago. But as you do know, the rule of law, the wheels of justice grind slowly. So I think as a country we can only be happy and pat ourselves in the back that at least the due process takes its course, and that the fight against corruption is on course, and that people who are accused are usually given the opportunity to have their day in court, or at least to have their say. So in terms of the details of what should happen next, I think we should all exercise some amount of patience.
Okay, but we have other public office holders. I know the president launched the code of conduct and the like. So what else? What other checks are there? If it doesn't get into the media, what else are we doing to ensure that these men and women who have vowed to serve publicly do so without having to infringe or so much drain the public purse?
Well, I think, unfortunately, as a country, we seem to be focusing too much on what I consider as the curative approach to tackling corruption. In other words, most of the time we are asking, this fellow has done this, what are we doing about it? But I think as government, that we have a responsibility to also be putting in place measures that aim to prevent.
And that was my question, actually. And that was my question.
To answer your question, there is a lot of capacity building going on, and you mentioned the code of conduct for public officials. In fact, if many public officers lived and worked according to their respective codes, we may not even be seeing the kind of corruption that we are seeing in the public sector. And I think that all of us in Ghana must know by now about the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, which has described and prescribed rules for all of us, rules that each of us must play in order that we can tackle corruption from several perspectives, from the education and awareness perspective, from putting in place preventive measures, and from prosecution, from the approach of investigation and prosecution and so on. So I think the case of CHRAJ is just one example which shows that leadership, the government, His Excellency the President, is committed to the fight against corruption, and that there are no sacred cows in this fight.
Daniel Batidam, thank you very much for joining us. He's the Presidential Advisor on Corruption. And that will do for the